Hello, and welcome to the House Party podcast with Ivory Innovations. I'm Jenna Louie, a director at Ivory Innovations. Our organization is dedicated to catalyzing innovative solutions in housing affordability. This podcast will tap incredible people from our innovations network. We will bring you the top entrepreneurs, researchers, and practitioners in the industry to shine a light on housing affordability solutions. Today, we have Alex Lofton on. Let's get the party started. Alex Lofton's entrepreneurial journey started long before he ever knew the concept of a business plan. In fact, he did not realize it at all at the time, but his earliest experiences in childhood gave him the background and understanding of the problem and how to solve it that would lead him down the entrepreneurial path. He worked as a member of Barack Obama's field team in 2007 and 2008 and as a founding regional director of Obama for America. Alex got his start in real estate at real estate developer Forest City, now Brookfield Properties. He holds a BA from Northwestern University and an MBA from the Stanford Graduate School of Business. Alex, we are so thrilled to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's great to catch up. So I know we have a lot of different topics to cover today on our podcast, but I want to start with a pretty open-ended question, which is, what's your story? I talked a little bit about your background just now, but tell us a little bit more about, how you got to where you've gotten with Landon and what made you want to start a company in this industry.
Sounds great. Happy to tell that story. So I always like to begin with the part that is real personal to me, where my mom was a fourth grade school teacher and my dad was a social worker. And I always say I really did win the lottery on love and support. I can't complain there. Pretty awesome parents. But money was always tight. And it wasn't until my granny died and passed along her home to us, the first example of intergenerational wealth happening in my family, did financial fortunes really change for my parents. It ultimately was the reason having a home, having that asset, was the reason they were able to be the financial bedrock for extended family when people had issues, needed money here and there to get through the month. Helped send my brother and I to college. Ultimately, was the big reason why they were able to retire as two public servants. So I don't take that fortune lightly. And reflecting back, felt really strongly that there shouldn't be just one way in which people can access homeownership and the financial security and the sense of freedom that can unlock. There shouldn't just be one pathway for that in expensive places, which is essentially having a bank of mom and dad to get you started. Oftentimes, it's either some sort of inherited wealth or somebody able to get you started to give you give you that cash that you need up front to be a home buyer and homeowner and have that sense of security and ultimately a sense of kind of freedom and joy that comes along with it. And even hardworking folks can do their best, but when you're paying for your rent and your normal living expenses, it can just be so hard to actually get to the point of being able to save for a down payment, being a homeowner. And so I got really excited about trying to apply the financial tools that Wall Street and other very wealthy investors use to make money themselves, try to apply that to Main Street, how to give that tool to the average person to democratize the who has access to home ownership and diversify who has access to home ownership, especially because intergenerational wealth is very much a racialized reality in our society, where if you're brown or black, there's a lot less chance that you'll be able to get some help from family to get started. And so we need some more tools out there to help people get access to something like home ownership. And so got really excited about that and stumbled upon shared appreciation and shared equity as a really interesting model. I'm happy to go into detail about that, but that is the kind of, for me, one of the founding grounding reasons why I wanted to start something in housing.
Right. And that makes so much sense. I mean, all of us have a housing story. I think that's one of the best parts about working in this industry, right? Everyone needs a place to live and everyone has a story or a family experience or something that says,
Absolutely.
wow, this is why I do the work I do. And so thank you so much for sharing that with us. I don't want to bury the lead any further, but would love to hear more about shared appreciation
What?
and shared equity
Yeah, for
and
sure.
how we do that. And I would be remiss to not mention that Landed was our 2019 Ivory Prize winner
Woot,
in the
woot.
finance category. And so you've been around for a couple of years, and of
Yeah,
course the
yeah,
idea started, well before you were recognized
absolutely.
by our group. So
Yep,
tell us a little bit more about what you
sure.
do.
Yeah. So um, I'll cut to the chase. Landed Today helps sets up down payment programs for institutions that want to offer homeownership or housing as a benefit to the populations they care about. It can be employees, that could be a specific demographic of people they want to help buy a home. And we help them set up shared appreciation down payment programs. And what shared appreciation is basically, you can think of it as a co-investment in somebody's home to get them started in homeownership. That arrangement or that investment is bought out in the future when the home buyer is ready to do that. And so, unlike debt, where you're borrowing money and kind of have to pay on that borrowed money on a regular basis, which basically is your mortgage, shared appreciation gives cash up front for help in the down payment and investment in the home. And then when the home appreciates in the future, when the value of the home goes up in the future, part of that share change in value is shared back to the people the investors who invested in the home, alongside with the original investment that was given in the home. So it's kind of like a bank of mom and dad, but it's not a free bank of mom and dad. You're sharing in the investment, but the idea is that you get some capital up front to get you started. And so we do that now as a white labeled service for institutions that want to offer it to their employees. We got our start by raising our own down payment capital, a fund that we raised from impact investors and insurance companies and retirement agencies, et cetera, and then offered that to essential professionals. Teachers, firefighters, nurses, et cetera. And the change in the economic environment has shifted our plans a little bit on that front, where we don't offer that program specifically any longer, but we've taken that technology and infrastructure that we've built to easily and rapidly scale shared appreciation as a benefit, and now are bringing that to alongside institutions, from governments to companies to schools to hospital systems that have their own capital but don't know how to offer this as a service, the operations of it as a service to their employees and constituents. That's what we are doing now for those types of entities.
And this is really interesting to me because one of the current finalists for the 2022 Ivory Prize, so you're an OG, Alex, with Landed, but we've continued to recognize other innovations in the space. And one of the groups that we've recognized this year is actually the California Dream for All program,
yep.
Which is the state of California's effort to provide down payment assistance in a way very similar to what Landed, in our opinion,
Absolutely.
really piloted and
Yep.
and started doing in a big scalable way for the first time in the country. And so can you talk to us a little bit more about kind of these big opportunities and how this landscape is evolving? You started with your own funds. You got people comfortable with the idea. Of course, everyone has known about the Bank of Mom and Dad for forever, and many people have accessed it. But this idea of bringing in maybe some outside investors to serve as that bank is a little bit newer. And so you started with a fund, you pivoted more to this white label model, and now we're seeing this idea really take off. So can you talk to us a little bit about that evolving landscape and what big opportunities you see for other institutions to play here?
Yes, I'll give a little bit of history lesson. I'm going to take a little quick unsolicited commercial break, though, on behalf of Landed, to say thank you to Ivory, the whole team at Ivory. I know honestly, the foresight that there needed to be more of a forum to discuss innovations in housing and help connect dots between people trying to make innovations has been absolutely critical in our success. So bravo to all of you guys, and thanks for having us on again today. So yeah, I think maybe what would be helpful, California Dream for All is extremely exciting. I'm pumped. I also am very proud. I think that yes, I think our work at Landed absolutely has helped move the needle to get serious amounts of money moving to try to help with homeownership in one of the most expensive, not the most expensive state in the country. What California Dream for All is basically a program the state of California is unrolling this year, where individual home buyers will have access to, I think it's going to be somewhere upwards of $150,000 per purchaser, per home buyer, in down payment support, and that down payment support will come from public dollars, and there will be a contract, just like we had a contract with land or have a contract with our home buyers. There'll be a contract with the state of California that says that you'll get this money, and in exchange, what you'll have to do within some sort of time period, probably within 30 years, you'll have to share back what you originally got in down payment support with the state plus 10%. I think that what they're going to do is for every 1% down payment support you get, they're going to share in 1% appreciation. But regardless of what the numbers are, you're going to share in part of that appreciation as well as what you originally got. And what's exciting about that and key about that is it's sustainable. That's why shared appreciation is really important and really interesting, is that unlike a grant, you don't just give money once and it goes away and there's nothing for the next person. And unlike debt, it's not, it's actually tied to the value of the asset. So if the asset goes up, you share in that gain. If the value goes down, you share in that loss. So it really is a co-investment. But ideally, in the long run, if you have these contracts working out at scale, then the money that's invested today can be reinvested in the future. And that can help the next home buyer in the future, so that you're not anchoring so much on just who needs a home today, but you're actually thinking about the long run. That's what's really exciting. The state of California wants to do this at scale, upwards of $300 million the first year, and then seeing how it goes could reach into the billions really soon. And we actually talked to their team who is designing that about how the work that we've done and what have we learned and how could they design this in a smart way. And we continue to be as helpful as we can to that team and the and kind of the state as they roll that out. The history, real quick, on shared appreciation, though, I think it was kind of lightly mentioned. This is not a brand new concept. We've been focusing on how do you leverage technology to scale it, to bring it to as many people as possible. Since the 70s, individual organizations and cities, the two that we had a relationship with and learned the most from were Stanford University and the city of San Francisco, both of whom have had their own down payment programs, shared appreciation down payment programs for quite some time, that will take a pot of money and help a specific group of people purchase a homes. In San Francisco, it was to help teachers specifically purchase homes. At Stanford, it was to help tenure line faculty who were moving from much cheaper parts of the country and moving to Palo Alto, helping them purchase a home. And so in both instances, we had examples of how these types of arrangements would work, what the contracts would look like, some of the details you need to think about. You spend an awful lot of time thinking about divorce and death, because that matters when you talk about purchase of a home and what that does to a financial situation for a family. And so learning from those experiences, we were able to kind of build on that knowledge more rapidly and focus more on the scalability of it, et cetera, as opposed to having to design it from day one. And so really this California Dream for All piece is kind of a culmination of work that's been done by many, many, many people before us at a local level and institutional level, that now is being scaled by, one of the biggest economies in the world. So that's pretty cool.
That is so cool. And one of the things you've touched on is this question of technology, right? And how technology is taking, an existing idea, something that institutions have been working on for a long time and have been providing, but how do you scale it up using a more digital footprint? Could you tell us a little bit about what that means? I feel like we had Chris Herbert on from the Joint Center for Housing Studies, and he mentioned digitalization. And here it is in action, right? If we're talking about there are more tools, there's more information, there's more data that is available. What does that look like for Landed when we talk about taking something that exists out in the world, but now doing it at scale?
Great question. Ultimately, technology organizes and transmits information, what we call data. Data can be in forms of words, it can be forms of numbers, it can be forms of dollars, there's all sorts of ways that data shows up. But it's basically technology allows you to more efficiently kind of transfer that and move and rearrange that information so that the outcome you're striving for can be achieved with less friction. And so in housing and home buying especially, it's one of the most old school industries that still is around. And there's just a whole heck of a lot of players in different parts of the process to purchasing a home, from financing a home to actually getting the physical property, to all these pieces. mean that people there's a bits of information in many many different parts. Some are on a computer, some are not on a computer, some are on different different systems. And what technology, the dawn or age of technology, allows is for all those different players to coordinate much faster, much quicker, with a lot less friction. And what that means, you just need fewer humans to serve more end consumers, which means the cost goes down, which means then you can basically do more with less. And anytime you can do more with less, you're talking about scale. And that means that what would have been cost prohibitive for a small university in the past to offer a boutique bespoke program now can plug into basically a system that is replicable and is leveraging economies of scale to deliver the same value to their own people that they for for a fraction of the cost. And so that's right. What our job has been, is to kind of, how do you arrange that and build that technology so that it's not providing this kind of value to your constituents or your employees is not cost prohibitive.
I was about to say, it seems like landed use of technology really enables, let's say, institutions who have been doing this for a long time, or hospitals, or any of the groups you've mentioned, who either are doing this but are doing it in a small way, or who aren't doing this but would like to, but don't have the resources or people to hire inside their organization. What hospital is going to set up a housing unit per se, to help house their employees? You wish they would, but maybe they won't. Landed use of technology enables them to do that in a really fast and easy way. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think an important element of this is trust. It's buying your home is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, purchase someone will make. And it's very nerve-wracking. And if you do things incorrectly, or if the process is so bad, you can lose trust from the end consumer. And so a big piece of technology here is trying to meet the consumer expectations that now exist, given the fact that we live in a digital world. People have a certain expectation on what an experience is going to be when they are, say, doing any financial transaction. And buying a home is a really big financial transaction. Building simplified, user-centric technology is actually a very difficult job. It's not, the simpler it is that probably the harder it was to get to that point. And so technology is plays a critical role in trying to deliver that kind of scaled, trustworthy, almost concierge-like experience without having to have a one-for-one match of employee to home buyer. Because if you do that, it's just that the math doesn't work out cost-wise. But if you can get to the point where you can kind of deliver that level of trust without the kind of, with a better ratio than one for one, then you're in a good spot. So it's about efficiency. It's about doing less with more, but it's also about not losing the trust factor along the way.
Wow. And I think we've entered a good part of the conversation to talk about your journey as a founder, right? Because what you're pointing out is, you can build technology all day. And let's say in housing, you can build technology all day, but if you don't have trust, and if you lose that as part of the customer journey, right, you haven't done a good job. And I imagine there's a lot of those kinds of conversations that happen as the leader of a company that's moving fast, that's growing and scaling. And so what has it been like, being a founder? And we've seen you evolve, since founding Landed all the way through a business model pivot, and having the market landscape around you really take this idea that you had made big and making it even bigger. So what's been easy? What's been hard? What advice would you have for others on this journey?
Great question. So I think hardest building a company over time is, honestly, for me, it's been that when changes in the economy happen or changes in strategy happen in order to continue to prioritize the mission of the company and the survival of the company, which is ultimately why a group of people would ever get together around a company, is to make sure it's successful. That when things change, especially when they're out of your control, and you have to change your team around as a result. I'm talking, layoffs. And then I think pretty much every company or organization had experienced that definitely during COVID, and then some during this last change in the economy. It's just the worst, because these are incredible human beings. We do a lot of work to recruit incredible people, and to no fault of their own or us as a group, sometimes it just doesn't work out, and we have to ask people to move on. I hate that. I'll always hate that. Anybody who says it's not that bad or gets used to it, I have questions for them. So I would say that is, for me, always been the worst. I think probably the best thing that I anchor on is I built a really awesome relationship with my co-founder, Jonathan, our CEO, still working together after all these years. It's hard to find someone that you can be in such a great partnership with. I think that's something a lot of entrepreneurs struggle to find or want to find. And I think that is it's actually relatively rare, and it's really valuable, and something that I both appreciate that I get to experience in the moment, but also really excited to see where and how he and I continue to build on that partnership that we've built over the years. So I think that those two things immediately stick out. I would always say, if anybody's thinking about starting a company, or always going to say, what are lessons learned? I think there's one I will say that struck me early on was just, if you go in thinking that, I have this great idea, and in 18 months it's going to be solved, or it's going to be great, it's going to be huge, I'm going to sell, it's going to be all my job will be done. You're delusional. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take, your time horizons have to be stretched out much further than weeks or months. I think oftentimes most really successful ventures and things take years to get to the point where you're feeling like they're in a good place. So especially if you're just used to hopping around from job to job every few months, sticking to something for years can be a big shift. And so I would say that is just adjusting your time horizon expectations is important. And kind of related to change as well is, because it takes time to build something, don't ever forget to keep looking up and checking over the world around you, and are the assumptions that you had when you started something consistent with the way the world is today. We landed coming out of grad school in 2015. It is now 2023. Those are very different contexts. Some things are consistent and the same, but a lot of things are not. And so making sure you're staying fresh to that while you're building something, I think, is really important as well. So
what can we look forward to for the rest of the year with Landed or in the housing industry?
In 2023, I think you're going to see at Landed, the full transition to our B2B service, helping schools and universities and governments deliver to their employees and their constituents shared appreciation as a benefit. I'm stoked about that, because that is honestly the tipping point for scale for this type of financial tool. And the more this becomes embedded into the way people purchase homes, I think the more diversified the set of people who will be buying homes is, and that's going to be really exciting. So I think this is a really big year for Landed, and kind of coming through the other side of this change in the market, and really being able to deliver on the mission we've always been trying to deliver on, just to democratize who has access to home ownership.
That is a mission we can all get behind. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today on House Party with Ivory Innovations. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.